maranasan. Pagkilos mo'y aking inasam, agad sa'yo ko lang natagpuan ang tunay na kagalakan. Nais kong ika'y maranasan, tibok ng puso ko'y ikaw lamang. Kaya't ngayon, bukas at kailanman, pagsamba ko'y iaalala
sa lahat ng viewers ng ating online midweek service, and ngayong week po is the 4th week of January, patapos na po ang buwan, and today is the last midweek service for the month of January. At bago po tayo dumako ngayon sa ating message, tayo muna po ay manalangin. Salamat Lord sa privilege na ma-share yung mga salita. Ikaw nawa ang magbukas sa puso at isipan ng bawat isang nanonood, Lord, upang maunawaan yung mga salita, Lord. Maramdaman nawa namin ang yung presensya sa gabing ito, Lord. Ikaw ang manguna sa gagawin namin ngayon, Lord. Salamat, Lord Jesus, for your word, Lord. And we give you back all the glory, praise, and honor. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Ang month's theme po natin ngayong Enero is about prayer, and prayer is vital para sa ating mga Kristiyano. Prayer is our communication with God, and talking about communication, while making this message po, na-recall ko yung lesson namin nung high school in English subject about communication models. And in communication models po, there are two types. One-way communication process and two-way communication process. Sa one-way communication process po, linear lang yung message, sender message, then receiver, katulad po ng nasa diagram. Dito yung sender do not expect answer from the receiver ng message. Yung listening part is on the receiver side lang. On the other hand naman po, sa two-way, both sender and receiver listens to each other and gather information, katulad po ng nasa diagram. Sa two-way communication model, both sender and receiver listens and expect for answer from each other. Na-share ko po ito and na-recall ko po siya because madalas po sa ating pagpe-pray kay God, when we are communicating with the Lord, nagiging one way na lang po ito. We tend to just talk to Him, but we forget to listen to Him. And sometimes po, we talk to Him but we do not expect for His answers. Nawawala na po yung expectant heart natin para kay Lord. Lalo na po sa mga panahon na lagi tayong nagdadasal sa Kanya. Ang tagal-tagal natin pinagdadasal yung mga panalangin natin. But, we tend to feel na parang di niya nadidinig, na ang tagal-tagal ng Kanyang mga sagot. Pero si God, two-way lagi yung communication niya sa atin. He always listens and He always answers. And today po, we will talk about a character in the Bible who prayed earnestly to God, and God heard and answered her prayers, and that is Hannah. The title of our message today is Hannah's Prayer. Ang passage po natin ngayon ay makikita sa 1 Samuel 1 verse 1 to 17. There was a certain man from Ramathaim, a Suphite, from the hill of country of Ephraim, whose name was Elkanah, son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Suph, an Ephraimite. He had two wives, one was called Hannah and the other Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had none. Year after year this man went up from his town to worship and sacrifice to the Lord Almighty at Shiloh, where Hophni and Phinehas, the two sons of Eli, were priests of the Lord. Whenever the day came for Elkanah to sacrifice, he would give portions of meat to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he gave a double portion, because he loved her, and the Lord had closed her womb. Because the Lord had closed Hannah's womb, her rival kept provoking her in order to irritate her. This went on year after year. Whenever Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, her rival provoked her till she wept and would not eat. Her husband Elkanah would say to her, Hannah, why are you weeping? Why don't you eat? Why are you downhearted? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? Once when they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh, Hannah stood up. Now Eli the priest was sitting on his chair by the doorpost of the Lord's house. In her deep anguish, Hannah prayed to the Lord, weeping bitterly. And she made a vow, saying, Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. As she kept on praying to the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying in her heart, and her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. Eli thought she was drunk, and said to her, "How long are you going to stay drunk? Put away your wine." "Not so, my lord," Hannah replied. "I am a woman who is deeply troubled. I have not been drinking wine or beer. I was pouring out my soul to the Lord. Do not take your servant for a wicked woman. I have been praying here out of my great anguish and grief." Eli answered, "Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked of him." Sa kwento po ng ating passage na ngayon, si Hannah po is hindi po siya magkaanak. The Lord closed her womb. And she's in a deep great anguish and deep sorrow because of that. And bukod pa dun, hindi na po siya magkaanak. Pinoprovoke pa siya ni Penina, the other wife of his husband na si Elkanah. And within the Old Testament culture po kasi, barrenness, yung hindi po pagkakaanak ng isang babae, was considered as social embarrassment and greatly looked down upon. And it's a matter of legacy rin po kasi pag wala pong magpapatuloy ng lahi nila, and that causes great anguish and sorrow kay Hannah. And in our previous midweek service po, ang tinalakay po natin is about a prayerful heart. And today naman po, ang tatalakayin natin is what can we observe from Hannah's prayer. Number 1 is Hannah prayed persistently. In Samuel 1 verse 3, year after year this man went up from his town to worship and sacrifice to the Lord Almighty at Shiloh, where Hophni and Phinehas, the two sons of Eli, were priests of the Lord. In verse 6, because the Lord had closed Hannah's womb, her rival Peninnah kept provoking her in order to irritate her. This went on year after year. Whenever Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, her rival provoked her till she wept and would not eat. Hannah prayed persistently. Ano nga ba yung ibig sabihin ng word na persistent? According kay Google, persistent is continuing to exist or endure over a prolonged period. It is continuing firmly or obstinately in a course of action in spite of difficulty or opposition. Madalas po sa buhay natin, meron din tayong mga Penina when we encounter problems, challenges, and sufferings. Marami tayong maririnig na discouragements and all the reasons for us to just quit. Hindi lang external, madalas internal din sa sarili nating pag-iisip. Tayo mismo yung nagbibigay ng mga words of discouragement sa sarili natin. But even though si Hannah was continuously provoked by Penina, nag-suffer na nga si Hannah because she can't hindi siya magkaanak, tapos pinoprovoke pa siya ni Penina year after year. But ano po bang ginawa ni Hannah? What did Hannah do? Instead of ma-discourage siya, na patuloy na manalangin sa Diyos dahil year after year walang nangyayari, tapos pinoprovoke pa siya ni Penina. Hindi siya na-discourage. What she did is, he go to the Lord and prayed to Him persistently and continuously. And ganun lagi yung ginagawa niya year after year, even though year after year din siya pinoprovoke ni Penina. And God wants us also to be persistent and communicating with Him. Ang Diyos naman po ay hindi napapagod sa pakikinig ng mga panalangin natin. Gustong-gusto niya nga po na lagi tayong nakikipag-usap sa Kanya and lagi tayong nakikipag-communicate sa Kanya. Gustong-gusto niya po lagi na tayo pakinggan yung mga hinaing natin, yung mga anxieties natin, yung worries natin. Gustong-gusto po ng Diyos na makipag-usap sa atin. Tayo po kasi mga tao, sobrang hirap po sa atin na maging persistent because tayo ay sobrang impatient. Gusto natin instant lagi. Kaya po napakadami ng instant ngayon. And as well as sa pag-pray, gusto natin instant answer. Pag pinag-pray natin ngayon, tomorrow gusto natin may answer na agad si Lord. But God is looking beyond our convenience. God's focus is our character more than our comfort. And si Hannah po, she prayed year after year, and she prayed persistently, pero sa mga taon na yun, walang sinabi sa passage na binasa natin kung ano exactly yung prayer niya. But in the end, yung sasagutin na ni Lord yung mga panalangin niya. She prayed like this. In verse 11, she made the vow saying, Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever use on his head. Yung prayer request ni Hannah sa naging panalangin niya yun kay Lord is inattach niya yung God's glory sa request niya. And God wants to answer all our prayers, but He wants us to learn and mold our character first before giving us the answer. And number 2 naman po, what can we observe from Hannah's prayer? Number 2 is Hannah prayed from her heart. In 1 Samuel 1, verse 12 to 13, as she kept on praying to the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying in her heart, and her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. Eli thought she was drunk and said to her, How long are you going to stay drunk? Put away your wine. God listens more to what is in our heart than what our mouth speaks. God wants us to be honest with Him. He wants us to pour our heart with Him, in Him. Wala naman po tayong maitatago sa Diyos. Hindi pa natin sinasabi sa Kanya, He already knows what is in our heart. But God wants honesty from us because He wants relationship. And Hannah was in deep anguish. She was in deep sorrow. And she was so desperate to be heard by God. And to the point na it doesn't matter for her anymore kung ano yung isipin ng ibang tao sa kanya. Just like what Eli thought about her, na kala niya is lasing si Hannah. Pero wala nang pake dun si Hannah because she's pouring her heart to the Lord. She's being honest kay Lord. And sometimes God will let us go through desperate times sa ating buhay because He wants us to go with Him with an honest prayer. And number 3 naman po, what can we observe from Hannah's prayer is Hannah's prayer request is attached to God's glory. In verse 10, in her deep anguish, Hannah prayed to the Lord, weeping bitterly. And she made a vow, saying, Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. Madalas po, pag may mga pinagdadasal tayo kay Lord na hindi align sa plano niya, pero proseso rin po kasi yung pagdadasal. As we continuously pray to the Lord, nire-redirect tayo ng Diyos. Yung mga panalangin natin, dinadirect niya ito sa kung ano ba dapat talaga ang ipanalangin natin sa Kanya. Si Hannah, year after year, nagdadasal siya kay God. She continuously prayed to God, and those years, something must have been changed sa panalangin niya. And as we continuously pray to the Lord, si Lord din naman po yung magbibigay sa atin ng mga desires sa puso natin, ng mga ipinapanalangin natin sa Kanya na align sa Kanyang mga plano sa buhay natin. And that is for His greater purpose and for His glory. And sa ating pong pagtatapos, in our conclusion, God always desires to communicate with us, but sometimes we tend to feel discouraged praying to Him when we don't immediately see His answers in our life. But just like Hannah, we should still persistently pray to the Lord, pray from our heart, and attach our request to God's glory, because our God is the God who listens to prayers, and He has answers to all of them. We just need to trust that His plan and timing are better than what we imagine.